Landscape photography is about observation. We can observe without really seeing. Find art in nature, look with intent and improve your landscape photography.
Hello, good morning everybody. It's great to be back out taking some photographs again. It seems like a long time since I've taken you out on a photographic trip with me because I've been working so much on the van over the last couple of weekends. But anyway, great to be out. And I'm not come far today. I'm just, I don't know, 10-15 minutes walk from where I actually live. So it's been nice to get out and not have to drive as well and not get up quite so early. I have brought you to this location before. And I think it was just after we were out of lockdown a couple of years ago and we were able to come out and do some photography at last. The purpose of today's visit though is a little bit different. Today is a bit of like a bit of mental exercise, shall we say, and we'll get more into that later on. So how many times do you go out with your camera to a location that you know well, like I have today, and actually spend your time looking around and come home with absolutely no photographs whatsoever? Is it because the location is so familiar you think there's nothing there to shoot? I think that certainly happens to me sometimes, and it's a little bit of a shame because there are lots of opportunities around us, loads of opportunities right on our doorstep. So I started thinking about how I could do something to actually improve that situation and see if I could find some ways of finding a little bit more creativity, shall we say, in looking for things. That's when I started to think about that actually we don't need to do a lot as photographers. All we need to do is learn to look. Because there's art in nature. There's art all around us. The landscape, wildlife, the great outdoors already provides those things for us. All we need to do as landscape photographers is tune into finding them, to look for those things that we wouldn't normally photograph, the things we wouldn't normally see. We need to be a little bit more vigilant about where we're putting our feet, where we're standing and our environment. So today that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take you along this journey with me where I'm trying to find some art out in nature, where I'm trying to find some different things that I want to look at. Some things I would maybe normally just walk straight past and not take any notice of. Because as I'm looking around and walking, I'm seeing things all the time. I'm starting to notice things that normally I wouldn't notice, things which are potential photographic subjects. And it's important to slow down and do that sometimes. Let's see what we can find. I suppose the thing to do though, before I actually start taking any photographs, is to explain to you what I think art is. I'm going to open that with a statement that basically goes, well, art can be anything you want it to be. So I haven't answered my own question. And I think on an individual level, you need to search your own soul, your own thoughts and your own ideas to work out what that's going to be for you. But for me, art in nature is just the way things work. It's the magical appearance of things that are unexpected. The textures, the contrast in lighting conditions, textures themselves, you know, the difference between smooth, soft, flowing water and hard surfaces of granite and rock along the riverbanks. The positioning of colour of bright flowers against dull greens. The different shaped leaves contrasting against each other, textures on bark. Now quite often when I do my photography, these things become part of the scene, not the scene themselves. They become the foreground interest, they become a supporting element, and I think we do that a lot as photographers unless we do close-up and macro. But we're missing something. We're missing those small intimate details, those small little nuggets of wonder in nature where we can often walk past it without stopping and looking. And that's why this is a good photographic exercise. It's time to stop and look a little bit closer. Let's see what images I can find. So a lot of regulars to my channel would probably know that this sort of subject is something I would use in a photograph anyway. It's something that I would probably use to create an interesting foreground, a leading element taking you into another scene. But today we're going deeper than that. We're looking where nature creates its own art, where the positioning of things works in such a way that they create intrigue and beauty all on their own. And in this image I've gone in really close onto this dead fallen tree stump, and there's some wood that's sort of been exposed, the bark's been ripped away from it, and it's surrounded by mosses and other decaying bark and things as well. And I just like the way that it fits together, and these sinuous vines which are going around the tree lead your eye directly into the frame. Now the camera is very close to the subject, so although this isn't macro photography, it's certainly close-up photography, and I'm going to have to do some exposure, and I'm going to have to do some focus stacking. If you're interested in finding out more about focus stacking, I've got a few videos on my channel where you can find out more about that. But essentially, I'm going to take a series of images and combine them together in Photoshop to create one image that is sharp where I want it to be. And that's the key to this. It's got to be sharp where I want it to be to bring out those textures. Right, let's get those pictures taken.
When I took this image, I thought it may end up as a black and white. I tried a colour edit, but it just didn't feel right. The black and white conversion allowed me to bring out the contrast and show the texture and detail in the photograph. It was after taking this photograph that things went very, very wrong.
So yes, 24 hours later, why did that happen, you may well ask. Well, basically my 24-105 lens is decided it's going to have to take a trip to the repair shop. It started to play about yesterday. It was whirring continuously, vibrating. I could see the lens elements moving about through the viewfinder. So I think it's something to do maybe with the image stabilization. I don't know, but basically it's decided to play up, and that's the end of that. But I didn't want to give up on the video, partly because I always say to you guys how you have to remain adaptable and go out and do and use what you've got. And I guess if I'm going to do that myself, then over the next few videos or whatever, whilst the lens is away for repair, I'm going to have to practice that myself. And that starts again today. So we've come out with the same thing in mind of looking for art in nature. And for this second photograph that I've set up, I've found something which maybe I wouldn't have found if I had the 24-105 lens on, so it's quite interesting. But anyway, I've set up with a 70-300 lens on a couple of leaves against some dead bracken in the background. I've got that contrast of colour, I've got that green and that brown in there as well. But because I'm shooting so close in on my 70-300, I've got some depth of field issues, so I'm probably going to focus stack anyway. I've tried to make it as flat to the focal plane as I can, so I don't have too many problems, but we'll take a couple of photo stacked images. Let's talk about what I've actually set up. Well, I'm going to put a bit of viewfinder video up for you, just so you can see what it is that I'm looking at. So basically, we've got this bramble and these couple of leaves on it, and I've tried to compose the image so that the stalk isn't actually going straight through from corner to corner, because I think sometimes that creates a little bit of tension. And though I want some sort of shape and some sort of design to this image, what I don't want to do is to jar the eye too much and drive you from corner to corner, and I think that would be a mistake in this picture. But we have got them on this nice curve, and we have got this different heights of the leaves, which I think is working really well as well. But what really intrigued me about this is new growth against last year's decayed growth. And once again, it's about those contrasts, about those things that we were saying before in nature, where sometimes it just does all the work for you, and all you have to do is seek it out and look for it. It was quite funny because this wasn't the first picture I was taking, but it was only since looking through this 75-300 lens that I actually found this picture and decided to take it. So I'm shooting at f5.6. Let's have a look. So I'm shooting at 50th of a second, f5.6, ISO 250. I've just brought the ISO up a little bit, only so that I just keep a reasonable shutter speed. It doesn't have to be too fast or too slow, but I just didn't want to have any movement. There is no movement here at all, so I will take some ISO 100, but I thought just 50th of a second would just give me a little bit of a better chance of not having any movement at all. So I'm going to take those in a minute.
It was the colour that first attracted me to this composition, but I also liked the new green shoots against last year's decayed bracken. I find the white line in the background a little distracting. But a few steps around this miniature world solve the problem. I think the square crop is stronger. What do you think?
So the idea with this sort of photography isn't to go absolutely wild and make it uncomfortable for yourselves by doing things you would never ever do. It's about stretching your creativity. It's about going a little bit either side of that comfort zone that you have. It's not about suddenly ending up with a situation where you don't enjoy what you're doing and you're completely out of your depth. Like any muscle, if you go too hard, if you push it too hard, you're going to harm it and damage it rather than strengthen it. So don't overdo it on your first trips out. Just go a little bit further. Just look for things in environments you enjoy being in, but things you wouldn't necessarily normally shoot. Difficulty with setting up this image is trying to avoid all the extra foliage and plants and leaves and everything around it. Getting the composition is really important, because you want your images still to have a certain amount of clarity and cleanliness to them. Well, that's what I go for anyway. You don't want an image which is really complicated and difficult to understand. So I've just about managed to pull off what I'm aiming for. Now the other thing, of course, is that because there's quite a lot of depth in this image, I'm going to have to focus stack again. I'm finding that I'm doing a lot of that with focus stacking. I've lost how many pictures I've taken, I can't remember, but basically I've just worked my way gradually through the composition, moving the focus slightly each time that I took the picture. I decided to use manual focus this time because it just made it a bit easier to make sure I covered the full focal range that I wanted to. Right, okay, so some stats for you. That was at f11, 5th of a second. Let's put this photograph up. I hope you enjoy it.
I think this could be my favourite photograph of the day. Predominantly green and nothing else, but so many hues and shades displayed to us by nature, and also so unlike my other work. I guess you could say mission accomplished. I think I can see many more forays into the world of close-up photography in the future.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that last picture, and I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and hopefully splitting it into two halves 24 hours apart didn't detract from it too much for you. I've got to go home now. I've got to go and post a lens back to Canon for repair, unfortunately, so it'll be interesting to see what the next video brings, because it'll probably be using this 70-300 lens once again. If there's one thing I want you to take away from today's video, it's that it doesn't matter what equipment you've got or where you are, we can all go out and do a little bit more to engage with the landscape and make sure that we're getting the most out of our photography. So if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and I look forward to getting out with the camera and taking you on that journey with me in the next video. Bye for now.